Now, have I got a question for you? Have I got a little bit of a question? And this is something I'm actually curious about because a lot of different people have a lot of different answers for what I'm about to ask. But what, I'm not going to say who inspires you. That's not exactly the question I'm thinking of now. But what I will say is, who gets you amped, right? Like, what do you watch? Who do you watch? Is it like a music video? Is it a compilation from a show, or like fight scenes, or just whatever? Like, what do you see that just gets you freaking... I don't want to say your blood boiling, because that would kind of imply that you're like pissed. No, I'm saying like what gets you just freaking like, if you're watching your phone in the parking lot in front of the gym and you see this, you tell yourself, holy shit. Okay, I'm about to go freaking nuts right now. Right. For me, it dabbles. It dabbles. For one, obviously, this was much more of my original inspo, was watching all the Machiavelli motivation videos, and the guys who were probably most prominently shown in those ones, at least the ones that I saw, a lot of Dorian Yates, a lot of Tom Platz, a lot of Kevin Levrone, I think. Beasts, right? And also, it's a very direct motivation because they're doing the thing that I'm about to be doing, and they do it insanely, incredibly well, and it's just like really hyped up, like that gets you going, right? But I don't think you have to only source your motivation for a specific topic based on people who are really good at that topic too, right? It could be anybody, So that's where, for me, if you watch any kind of like different shows or whatever where they've got music videos and kind of highlighted scenes from the whoever, I'm talking Reiner and Bertolt, I'm talking Goku Vegeta, I'm talking Baki Yujiro. Right now, obviously, that's a little more anime biased, but it's pretty cool. I mean, the whole gist, like if I were to describe the basic plot of a lot of these shows, and it's like whether or not you're into it, whatever, but like the basic storyline of each of these parts of things where it's, protagonist, antagonist, conflict, resolution. It's, at least with a lot of those shows, the conflict is, holy crap, I gotta beat the shit out of this guy who's like way stronger than I am. Alright, I better go train. I better get to a certain level of like, training ability and experience and skill. I'm gonna put that skill to the test, and then they're either gonna win or lose. And just that basic ass premise put into a million different ways with a million different other storylines and things like that gets me going, right? That gets me freaking excited. If I'm listening to like a TikTok edit or some kind of video or something like that where it's highlighting whatever show where I already get motivated from watching this thing, and it's a really cool like edit music video, and the music is really getting me going, well then now I just stacked 3 different kinds of motivation in one little form of media that I get to listen to and kind of get myself amped up, preset with. Now, some people follow the idea. Like I knew one guy back in college where I remember him saying pretty like specifically, no headphones, no phone in the gym. I don't need distractions. I don't need a crutch. And guys even say, I'm not taking pre-workout, dude. What happens if I forget it? I don't want to become reliant on it. So I guess that begs the question, am I reliant on pre-workout? And to that, I'd say for the workout, I guess, but I'm also reliant on my car to get to the gym. And I'm like, it's not bad to be reliant like that. I think they don't like the idea of like being dependent, like having a dependency where it's like, well, if I forget my headphones, am I really gonna be able to work out that hard? And for me, I've never really locked into that logic. It didn't make a ton of sense to me, because even if I didn't, let's say we go freaking Stone Age, we get hit with a worldwide sun flare that shuts the internet down for months. Guess what? I'm still going to get some badass lifts. The fact that I can't watch a certain video that gets me amped up, I'm still going to be able to bring it. But what I'm saying is, if you have things in your pocket, if you've got cards that you can play to get yourself into that headspace during a workout, to get yourself to do your cardio, to track your calories, to do whatever, do it, you know? And that's one thing which I don't, like, this is the one study I want to see. This is the study that I really want, legit, you know, peer-reviewed, multiple subjects, whatever, of force exertion and training adherence by characters who get themselves freaking amped up to the max versus guys who do a workout in a very chill mentality, kind of just relaxed, casual, you know? Like, I want to get to a point where if you put a brainwave scanner under my hat mid-set, especially mid-squats, I can guarantee, but at least for most other sets, then, you know, whatever metric it can read for, like, my physical exertion, I want to redline it every time, you know? That doesn't mean I want to bench so heavy that I rip my pecs off, but you can go crazy hard with moderate weight, you know? That just means you're really taking it to legit failure. And that's something that I think doesn't get enough love. You know, we're always talking about working out in the gym as though it's just this simple activity where you do it and then you get the results that come with it, and that's the end of it. You know, are those results worth it for you? But, you know, it just doesn't get enough. I don't think it gets talked about enough about how much more productive, exciting, and just enjoyable it is to work out when you're really into it. When you get into the zone of everything, you may as well be in a music video to the song that you're listening to in the sets that you're doing, you know. And it doesn't matter if you're not benching the most out of everybody in the gym, because, you know, for you that's a wild ass set, right? It's your world, we're living in it, at least when you're doing a set, you know. In between, when you're looking for machines, we're sharing. But if you unrack something and you're about to get after it, dude, nothing else should really distract you too much. You know, I mean, if I really get into a wild set, I don't even know what somebody would say if they were talking behind me. Like, it's not going to clock. All right, so I'm going to try to get myself that amped tonight with chest. Not sure what I want to start with, because do I start heavy? Do I start light and then move on to heavy pressing? I'm not sure. I used to think that it was stupid to do flies before heavy pressing, because in my mind I was like, well, why would I want to fatigue myself, or why would I want to tire myself out with a light movement before doing a heavy one? Like, that was a very bro science-y logic that I was using. But now I actually see the benefit where it's like, okay, well, to pre-exhaust with flies would mean I wouldn't need so much weight later. And honestly, I think the set's efficiency or effectiveness doesn't really change too much as long as I still seriously bring it, you know. And then that opens up my training world to the idea of doing sets lighter squeezing first, and then pre-exhaust hard, heavy ones later once I'm already pumped, you know. I really like squatting after already getting a little bit of a quad pump from leg extensions first, which you would think, oh, well, you give yourself a quad pump, your quads are going to be weaker during the squat. I disagree. You know, when they're fresh, when they're warm, when they've got a good amount of blood flowing in them, when I put the load of a squat through my quads and I get into it, they're already like just in a prime state for force exertion, you know. So I think that's something to be asked to a power lifter, you know, because I mean, when I'm squatting and it's a really heavy set, I want heavy weight and high reps, you know, at least 8 is the lowest that I want to go on a set of squats. So I don't think a power lifter would want to pump up his quads before a set, but I'm sure they'd have something to say, you know. So if you know or you are a highly experienced power lifter, I'd love to hear your take. But I think there's nothing else to say there. I'm gonna get some tunes freaking, I don't want to say blasting, but at least jamming, get my shoulders warmed up, and get this chest day started. So I've made a decision. This chest day will not start off crazy heavy, only moderately heavy. So 150 pounds in either cable stack, adjusted as such right underneath this bench, which appears to be a little bit, just a little off kilter. There we go. Yeah, so the point of this set will be, I mean, it's almost exactly like how I start triceps off with a rope. Instead of a crazy heavy slap 3 plates on the side of a stack, you know, push down heft set, still enough weight to have a substantial amount of tension, but I want to make the reps even harder than how heavy they are with the way that I do them. So instead of just being totally nasty, I'm talking a good squeeze at the top, stretch, and a really like intentional squeeze. I want to get to the point where I physically can't even hold it at the top anymore. Then phase 1 of the set is complete. Then get to a point where I can't even do a full rep to the top anymore. That's phase 2. And then phase 3, just burn out with as many partials as feasible. You know, I'm not going to sit here doing like half an inch, but I'm going to get to the point where it's like no more real reps are possible. And I don't think that's a calm thing to do, right? I want to freaking get amped here. So let me get my phone going. Okay. Okay, yeah, one more of those at least, but maybe 2. That felt freaking sweet. Okay. Oh, one more thing is actually like a real tip about any kind of cable press like this. I find it helps me feel my chest to keep my hands like turned upward in the press as much as possible, which I guess if you turn them all the way around, then you're Michael Hearn doing an underhand bench. I see the logic. Because if I sit here like this, much more front delt coming into play. I'm using a hunching instead of a underhanded pressing. But one more, honestly, maybe 2 more, then we can move on. Oh, I'm doing one more. Two. Oh, let's make another drop set. A little too heavy. Oh my gosh, okay. Oh, okay, let's talk about that once we pick the next movement. That was perfect today. Well, we'll just do a full-on lift recap at the end. But now, honestly, same plan, but instead of cable press, it will be pec deck. So still controlled. I'm not going to throw this shit around like a nutcase, and I want to squeeze it like crazy when I'm strong. And then once I can't substantially hold the top position, that's when partials come into play. A full set of partials, probably pretty silly, probably not optimal, but partials at the end of a set, dude, talk about intensifier. If I racked it just because I couldn't do a complete rep to the top, I'd feel like I'd be missing out on a little. But that's just me, so that's a little personal preference there for sure. One more of those. I want to dig a little deeper for the next one. All right, so minor pause from the lift, but in terms of the actual merch side of things, finally got the Sam hats. Pretty subtle, just a little Sam logo on the corner. But I actually finally de-engineered the baggy pants that I've been rocking this whole time. And that's actually one thing where it's like, most of the stuff is like, if you watch the videos, that's kind of the appeal of like a Sam shaker. But honestly, if you're a bigger guy, that's where, there's a reason I kept getting the same exact pair of pants this whole time, because they're actually baggy. I'm talking like my leg is this shape, but the bagginess is probably what, double the circumference? There's a little pocket logo, but nothing wild. But they're not done yet. They're still in the final stages of, what would you call it? R&D. What is R&D? Research. Still in the final stages of development, but gonna have a black pair and a gray pair. So this is one thing I can ask you guys. What's the ratio, right? If you were somebody who would want to get these, you thinking blacked out? You thinking subtle gray? You tell me. I like a mix, but yeah, just a little update. That'll be soon. Not tomorrow soon, but like soon. But let's get one more of these in and move on to something else. Okay, all right. I'm not sure what I want to finish with. Give me a second to decide. I'm probably going to finish with something cable related. Definitely going to finish with something cable related. But let's do a decently heavy set of pressing first. 3 plates after all those sets should feel pretty heavy. Actually, it does. I already did a feeler rep. But let's make this shit happen. Okay. Technically, I have more leverage in this lower handle, so this is a little easier than up here. But I guess not that much easier. Jesus. Let's finish with some cables, and then we can pose down. This is quite the pump. I'll let it speak for itself, though. I think I'm going to finish off, or at least see if this will be the finisher, of just a bent over, very pumpish. Like with this weight and with how pumped I already am, for me to just do these reps with a good squeeze at the bottom, what I'm aiming for, obviously contraction, activation, but what I really want is a quick squeeze to stretch back and forth, especially at the end of a lift, just because it gets me the most pumped. And it's not because I'm like, oh, well, you know, if you get more blood flow to the muscle at the end of a workout, it actually stimulates, like I'm sure there's something to that for sure. But, I don't know, man. It's how I grade a good lift. A really good lift, typically going to have a really good pump at the end of it. And vice versa, right? A pretty big dude can probably lift pretty heavy weight. You know, so as much as we can complicate it to the bare essential details, I'd rather keep it simple. Go hard, eat hard, sleep hard, flex hard, enjoy hard. All right, that's what I'm thinking. But let me get a song playing and bust this shit out. Okay. Okay. I think you know what it's time for. There we go. All right, let's keep this thing from wobbling too much. All right. So, making use of the extra fanciest pants lighting I can get my hands on, or I guess I can get my eyes on, it'd be more accurate. Which, you know, maybe don't get used to that. Like if there's a spot at your gym where you frankly look like a total beast, even more than normal, it's probably healthy to do some pose downs away from that spot, because you could artificially like give yourself the idea that you look like that in extra crazy lighting, which I mean you do in the moment, but tomorrow morning when I wake up, I mean I'm just gonna you know, I'll look like I regularly do. So I'm trying not to get attached to a crazy in the gym wild ass pump look, but doesn't mean you can't enjoy it while you got it. So let me back up just a touch, make sure I'm still in. Yeah, there we go. All right, no more wobbling. Perfect. All right. But just looking at myself, I do not feel like I look 252 or probably 251 this morning, which is a good thing. That means I look heavier than I am, which is like the whole point. It's the illusion of exercise from having brolic shoulders, a big chest, and not like a humongous waist. But let's let's start with just a classic most muscular. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that last one was good. I can tell when I get myself a little bit of that lightheaded feeling. Let's see how the back's looking. Oh, goodness. We're definitely setting the stage for freaking something. And honestly, this is actually even a cool look over here. Let me see if I can get us in focus. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Even just the standing from kind of the backlighting and everything else. Yeah, that's what I want to see. So the leaner I get, the thinner my midsection will become. And my shoulders, like the broadness of my look, not really going to shrink much. You know, I've got much more fat tissue here on this band, especially like over here on the sides too and everything, than I do up here. Not as much. So to get leaner, your disposition for fat deposition will actually make your diet seem like it's working extra well, because not only will you be leaner, but it'll give you those proportions you're probably looking for. Smaller waist, smaller stomach, not gonna like totally shrink down your arms or anything. I mean, shit. If that's not an incentive to start counting calories, I don't know what is. But let's pack this shit up, get in the car and roll. Chest complete. All right. That's what I call good. That's what I call pretty freaking good. And sets like those, probably the last 3 of that like incline bench cable setup that I was doing, those are some pretty solid sets in terms of comfortability to reach failure, if you kind of catch what I'm following. Because I think there's a sweet spot where you're going heavy enough, but it's still light enough that you can do upwards of 10 reps, where, you know, it's not like leg extensions where you're getting hit with like that burning effect and you just can't squeeze it anymore because it's just a pain thing. Because I mean, I wasn't feeling insane like chest burning during those sets of squeezing presses, because they were still heavy enough that the load was hard enough that I couldn't get to that burn range. It was more so just inability to freaking move, you know. And those are sets where really no one can judge it for you, because you could fake it. I mean, if I did 3 less reps every one of those sets, I probably could have faked it that it was like extreme failure, and I'm like, and you wouldn't even notice. You know what I'm saying? So how many sets are getting faked in your gym that you don't know about, right? That you don't see happen, and they just gets thrown by the wayside. Not cool, you know. But sets like that, like when I said I wanted to dig deep for that next set of flies, what I really mean there is like, okay, I want to get to a point where those last few reps, the only reason I rack the weight is because I physically can't do any reasonable amount of a rep anymore. Not because it was kind of hurting or it was kind of tender or, you know, anything else along those lines. I'm talking pure inability to move. I'm sending signals as hard as I can from my brain through my spine into my chest, and it's not listening. It's refusing to continue because of the reps that I put it through before. And it really helps to do those squeezing reps in the beginning for a set like that, because it kind of fast tracks where failure ends up being, you know. Because if all those reps were really quick, well, then I just kind of keep pumping them out. Maybe I'd even get double the number of reps than that first set I did, where I actually squeezed and held for like the first 6 reps, and then had to back off to, you know, the ones where I was kind of pumping it a little and then just doing partials, you know. So that's just one where it's a little bit of a self-actualizing or self-proof of, okay, do I want it? Because I mean, I want every set to actually progress in intensity. There are times where, I mean, maybe if I'm squatting really heavy, obviously, sorry about that. But there are times when obviously the squat is so wild that the rest of quads ends up being a little more chill, just because it's leg extensions, you know, and things like that. That's a little different. But for a regular workout where there is no crazy, heavy, wild set like that, every set I kind of want to essentially raise the bar of the threshold of intensity that I'm holding myself to, and I want it to increase. I want it to progress set by set by set throughout the whole lift, because I mean, at least just from how I see it, that's a good setup. Because then, I mean, I've had days, honestly, hamstrings, since hamstrings is the start of most of my leg days, that's where I feel this the most. And what I'm talking about is when I'm like just kind of walking in, you know, I'm not like super caffeinated up yet because I just drank the pre-workout, because I want to be fully caffeinated by the time I start quads. So usually set 1 and 2 of hamstrings ends up being sometimes not as intense. You know, not lately. I haven't been hit with this for a little while, but what'll happen is like I start it, and then that puts me in a good position to reflect. Right? Let's say I just did a scrappy set. That puts me in a position to say, what the frick was that? But obviously in a more serious manner. I don't stand for that. That's not how I roll. And that set doesn't even count. Like when I count the workout, that just gets counted as a warm-up set, because now I'm actually there, you know, and that's where kind of that rule of self-regulating how much you're going to bring it is going to come into play. Because on times when you don't, if you know that you should, well then if you catch yourself slacking, then it's just a cue. It's like, you got to wake up, you know, and odds are you'll know that you got to wake up because you'll want to actually bring it. And it's kind of a weird, I guess you can say almost like paradoxical thing, where doing a scrappier set sometimes when everything isn't going your way and you're super hyped up actually can flip around into more hype and more intensity, because now you're saying, all right, I gotta get real. I'm not the guy who does a set like that. I'm gonna bring it on the next one, and then further and further and further. And even if I don't, even if I can only reach here, but I want to get to here, the fact that I still want to just bring it a little bit higher set by set by set, that's just a good headspace for me. That really gets me amped up. It gets me excited. It makes me want to go harder. And it's, you know, it's how progress works for everyone. Because once you've reached a certain level of anything, once you've reached a certain level of size or of strength or of just progress or skill, well then what does that tell you? That tells you what you have done is possible for you to do. And if it's possible for you to do, I think there's a way of looking at it where you say, well, that means you can do more, or at least maybe you can do more. And if there's a maybe I can do more, well then guess what? Maybe I want to find out. All right, I want to actually get a little bit further. So when it comes to, you know, describing a workout, I don't think I'll ever have a perfect workout. And I don't want to think I'll ever have a perfect one, because I know I always can go harder. There's always more in the tank. There's always more water in the towel that you're just trying to wring out. And it's the fact that there's always more, and it's kind of this unreachable thing that I think gives me a good visualization of like just trying to step forward, right? Trying to go up another rung and trying to make it so that I'm a better lifter and I go harder today than I did yesterday. And as long as the goal is to be better in the future than you are now, and you actually actualize it, well then guess what? You're good, right? Progress and gains and everything, it's just a waiting game, because you're the person who's now set up just to build momentum forward, right? You're the guy where you're, it's not really good. I'm trying to think of a good little reference for this, but I guess there isn't really. But either way, every time the ball spins around, you're giving it a little bit more of a push, and it just keeps speeding up, right? And an object in motion is going to stay in motion, and if every force that you act on it is in a positive direction, well then guess what? You're going to fast forward, and you're going to look back at photos of yourself when you were 16 or when you were 18 or 20 or whatever you're actually starting working out at. You're going to say, holy shit. I know I do. I know I look back and I'm like, this is freaking nuts, you know. And I guess it doesn't feel as crazy for me now, of course, because like I'm literally living it. But if you were to ask 16-year-old Sam when I started working out how any of this would have turned out, like if you said, is this what's going to happen, gains wise, just everything wise, yeah. I mean, even just talking gains, 250 like light like dieting from, or a flat 250. Let's just say it would have been hard to believe. But plan now, get some food, chill, get a little bit more food, find a new show to watch. I finished season 1 of the 3-Body Problem, which I really liked. Like, it was pretty freaking cool. But now I'm showless, and I almost want to read the book just because I want to find out what's next. But usually I'm good to wait. I'm never in a rush if I know something's going to be good, because if I know it's good, I can save it for later, right? I want to give myself a treat in the future. You don't have to instantly. I mean, if you instantly binge watch a show, then guess what? Now it's done. Now it's gone, right? What was the point? Was it being able to say you watched it or enjoy watching it? And that's a little bit of an unlifting related advice, or kind of a mentality I've got. But I think that's all. Very good day. It's nice out. Good lift. A bunch of lights that I ordered to put in the gym to make it look fancier just got delivered. I don't have the stands for them, so I'm going to have to wait a couple more days for those. But things are solid, man. Things are looking up. It's good to be able to say that. It's good to be able to think about things like that and say, you know what? We're on track. We're on track to make some shit happen. So I think that's all I got, man. I got some back tomorrow. Not exactly sure what gym I'll go to, but I can guarantee whichever one it ends up being, I'm going to leave more pumped than I walked in. And that's a guarantee. I mean, there's not a ton of guarantees in life. That's a guarantee. That's a legit freaking guarantee. But yeah, that's all I got. So I'll see you then.